Welcome to Blacklisted, where we dare to disrupt the universe by giving new life to text. I'm your host, Andrew Smith, and we are joined here today by our guest speaker, Clarissa Ng, a literature professor, to discuss the roles of narratives in our world.
Thank you, Andrew. I believe it's evident that the propagation of meta-narratives dictates the world that we inhabit. They are universal traditions that offer a metric to understand what is valuable and what is not. For over the years that I've studied English, I find that narratives can question the values of these cultural milieus through the stories that we cast. Take Whitman's line as an example. Though you are here that life exists and identify, that the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. It's a metaphysical way to define our existence as individuals who actively participate in meta-narratives. That to contribute a verse, we exist to participate in these traditions by leaving our impact as a memoir for the powerful play. That we can create opportunities for subversion, yet a lack of doing so normalizes into a reality created by others, which we need individuals to tell their verses and create a space for future generations to cast their own stories, to reshape a world we want to live in. Which brings me to Virginia Woolf's 1929 novella, A Room of One's Own. She's an individual that disrupts masculine-mandated history by questioning the binary extremes of women made by men. Woolf's pursuit of questioning leads her to a poignant caveat that the agenda to be complex excludes femininity, that women have no character and should confine themselves to making puddings, knitting stockings, that women have no capacity to be dynamic, so they are reduced to compliant, vacuous figures, alluding to the other polar representation of women that Woolf adopts through a fictional persona, Judith, the imaginary sister of Shakespeare, a woman who possessed the same genius tropes of her brother, but was thwarted and hindered by other people. That her gender restricted her from writing and outcasted her as a figure possessed by devils or lost her insanity. Woolf's persona Judith is a nomenclature act that represents a maxim of Elizabethan women who were dehumanized to obscure disgruntled figures by the patriarchal society when they tried to write. However, Woolf casts a premise that these facades can be combated if a woman invests in oneself, that women can challenge these polar representations of women that were bred under the masculine lens if women were to invest themselves into a multifaceted identity, to beckon an avant-garde of women to challenge these one-dimensional representations, produces a volta towards a woman's complex nature and can redefine what it means to be feminine. Woolf demonstrates that by contributing her verse, she adopts the persona of the every woman, creating a space for women to contribute their verse to rail against simplistic gender dualities and daring to reimagine what it means to be a woman, to have a voice. Which leads me to how the 2001 movie Legally Blonde exists in the same space made by Woolf. Although Virginia's experience as a woman in the 1900s is an anachronistic act, her verse that women can complex themselves still remains poignant. For the protagonist, Elle Woods, is the Woolf of the contemporary age, who rails against inequity in the serious and prestigious Harvard Law Institution. That because she wears pinks and obsesses over appearance, she is dislocated by her peers as she indirectly fulfilled the role of the dumb blonde. This is seen when she's mocked by her nemesis, Vivian Kensington, a character who possesses the archetype of the Harvard woman, serious, educated individuals who harbor masculine tropes, reducing Elle's identity to the Malibu Barbie. However, Elle proves that she can be intellectual as well as girly by delivering the iconic line, "I'll show you how valuable Elle Woods can be," that is followed by her building her Marge scene. Elle never loses her prior self as she progresses to be a law student, but invests herself into a more dynamic persona that combats the dumb blonde pastiche that acts as the denotement of the film, showing us that she's a standard bearer who marches into masculine institutions that is Harvard law and challenges reductive perspectives of women, specifically unserious blondes, which links back to Woolf's premise of recasting what it means to be a woman. Phonetically, Woods is mimetic for Woolf. Elle is the every woman of the modern age, similarly like Woolf was in her own time. Both Woolf and Elle are individuals that feel the onus to disrupt and vacate a space for future generations, to distill reductive representations of women by recasting what it means to be feminine, returning us to what are the purposes of narratives in our world. For after indulging with these texts, we can deduce how they question and problematize suppositions resilient meta-narratives are built upon, that according to Whitman, narratives vacate space for individuals to cast verses, allocating a location for subversion, allowing future generations to adopt these stories and contribute to the powerful play. For the mantle falls to you. For you can decide to adopt my verse that narratives reshape our world. In doing so, contribute your story, for they could rail against poignant meta-narratives that plague us today and construct the world that we want to live in. Thank you so much for listening.